So, today we're diving into a legal case from 1981 that honestly reads more like a mystery novel than a dry court document. You've got a bizarre wedding night, secret letters, a truly shocking medical discovery, and a courtroom showdown that literally changed the law. This is the wild story of how one doctor's note completely unraveled a marriage.
Just think about this for a second. A brand new marriage, over and done with in just 5 months. And the reason isn't what you'd typically expect. No, the whole thing hinges on a secret that only came to light after a very reluctant visit to a doctor. So what was this secret, and how on earth did it become powerful enough to legally just erase a marriage?
All right, so let's set the scene. Our story begins in Bombay, where a marriage got off to a very strange start, right from the very first night. And that strange start set a whole chain of events in motion. So picture this. It's their wedding night, June 20th, 1976. The husband approaches his new wife, and she just flat out refuses him. But this wasn't, a simple no. She made a declaration. She said, point blank, that she would not have sex with him for an entire year. The husband later said she was very much upset and showed a clear aversion to any sexual act. Right out of the gate, this was the first and biggest piece of the puzzle. What's just crazy is how fast this all happened. The wedding and that first refusal were in June. By July, they're already on a pilgrimage, supposedly looking for some kind of divine intervention. By August, things have gotten so tense that it leads to that crucial doctor's visit. And by November, get this, less than 5 months after they said I do, the husband is in court, filing to have the entire marriage annulled. It's a whirlwind, really.
So, the husband is left completely baffled. His wife is still refusing him even after this big trip they took. So he starts his own kind of investigation, trying to figure out what is going on. And that search for answers is what leads him to a doctor's office and to a discovery he never saw coming.
Okay, so while they're on this pilgrimage in July, the wife writes 3 letters home to her family. And if you read them, they sound totally normal. She's talking about the temples they saw, the relatives they visited, some saris she bought. She even mentions going to the movies. It sounds like a perfectly pleasant trip for a newlywed couple, right? But there's something huge missing.
In 3 separate, detailed letters home, she never once mentions her husband's name. Not a single time. Not he's doing well, not we're having a good time, nothing. And for a judge, looking at this later on, that silence was absolutely deafening. It painted this crystal clear picture of total emotional distance.
So after the trip, the husband is desperate. He goes to his father-in-law, who basically just blows him off. Fed up, the husband finally lays down an ultimatum. Either you go get a medical exam, or I'm taking you back to your father's house for good. She reluctantly agrees, and this is the turning point. She goes to see a Dr. Bhatia, who finally uncovers the real medical reason behind her behavior.
So what did the doctor find? The diagnosis was second-degree uterine prolapse. To put it simply, it's a condition where the uterus has slipped way down from its normal position. And in her specific case, the doctor also found that her cervix was elongated by about 2.5 inches and was actually protruding. The key thing to understand here is that this wasn't some minor thing. It was a significant chronic medical condition.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, a medical condition, that's sad, but is it grounds to end a marriage? Well, not usually, but concealing it, that's a different story. And as it turns out, the husband's timing was unbelievably lucky because the law on this exact issue had changed just 1 month before his wedding.
You see, before May 7/27, 1976, the law was super strict. To prove fraud in a marriage, you had to show you were tricked about the wedding ceremony itself, like maybe you thought it was a different ritual altogether. Being deceived about the person you were marrying, their health, their finances, their personality, that generally didn't count as legal fraud.
And this shift in the law was monumental. Under the old rules, a famous case had even decided that hiding a serious condition like epilepsy wasn't enough to annul a marriage. But then, the 1976 amendment came along and changed everything. It specifically added that fraud could now include hiding a material fact or circumstance, which meant, all of a sudden, a serious health issue could be considered legal fraud. It was a total game changer.
So, the husband has the doctor's diagnosis, and he has this brand new law on his side. He takes his case to court. And now, it's all up to a judge to listen to 2 completely different versions of the same 5-month marriage and figure out who was telling the truth.
So in court, you have these two completely opposite stories. He says she knew about her prolapse and deliberately hid it. She says, I had absolutely no idea. He says the marriage was never consummated because she was so averse to it. She claims they had a normal, happy sex life. He points to those letters as proof of how distant she was, and she actually claims those same letters prove they had a happy relationship. It's a classic he said, she said.
And the judge, Justice A.N. Modi, well, he did not hold back. After listening to the wife's entire testimony, her claims that she didn't know about her own body, her strange interpretation of the letters, he delivered this absolutely brutal assessment. I mean, wow. He's basically saying her entire story was a lie.
On the other hand, when he looked at the husband's story, he found it to be totally credible. It all just made sense. The weird wedding night, the pilgrimage, the ultimatum, the doctor's visit, it was a logical sequence of events. And most importantly, it was all backed up by the hard medical evidence from Dr. Bhatia.
So what did it all boil down to? Credibility. The judge just found it, in his words, impossible of belief that an educated 27-year-old woman would be completely unaware of a second-degree prolapse, a condition where her own cervix was physically protruding. Her claim that she had no idea just didn't pass the smell test for him.
And so, the judge annulled the marriage on two separate legal grounds. First was fraud. He ruled that the uterine prolapse was a material fact that she had knowingly hidden, which fit perfectly into that new 1976 law. And second, on the grounds of impotency. He said that her physical condition, combined with what the law calls an invincible repugnance, basically a deep, unshakable psychological block, meant that she was legally unable to consummate the marriage.
Okay, so this verdict wasn't just about one couple. The judge's detailed reasoning made waves, creating legal precedents that have been talked about and cited in Indian family law for over 40 years now. So let's break down why this case still matters so much today. The legacy here is huge. For starters, it firmly established that hiding a serious health defect, especially one that affects the core of a marriage, is a material fact under the law. It also confirmed that a deep psychological aversion, that invincible repugnance, can be a legal form of impotency. The case set a standard that intercourse isn't considered normal if it requires difficult or constant manipulation. And finally, it was a masterclass in showing how personal letters and behavior can become powerful, persuasive evidence in court.
And that's what's so fascinating, right? It leaves us with this big question for today. This 1981 case was about a secret kept face-to-face. But now, in the age of dating apps, of carefully curated online profiles where we all present the best version of ourselves, it really makes you wonder, where is the legal line today? How much about our health, our finances, or our past is considered a material fact that we're legally obligated to disclose before we say, I do?
And if you want to read the source for yourself, all the details for this breakdown come directly from the High Court of Bombay's ruling in the case of P.V. Gopalkrishnan versus Kanaksha Gopalkrishnan. Just a fascinating intersection of medicine, law, and human drama.